Okay, well, Philip, you are a reporter for the Merritt News, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, okay, and I had the opportunity to meet you, actually, up in Merritt a couple of weeks ago, and we had a very interesting chat about things. What's going on in Merritt right now? What's it like being the only reporter for your publication?
Well, it's a challenge, definitely. I spend many extra hours in the office. I spend a lot of hours taking photos, going to meetings, stuff like that. At this point in my career, it's very enjoyable because it's all very new to me, but I imagine in 10 years, if I'm still doing the same thing, it might get a little tiring. And it is tiring, but at the same time, it is enjoyable.
Yes, well, I must be. I mean, we talked in the interview, and you say you basically, when you first started, were spending like 60 hours a week just filling stories up and getting stuff for your newspaper. You said you've got that down to about, what was it, 50 now?
Yeah, it's about 50.
Wow.
Yeah. This week, a little bit more. We're working on a tourism guide, so it looks like Monday and Tuesday, which is Wednesday is the production day, so Monday and Tuesday are pretty much the days that I spend the extra hours in the office to make up for any maybe lost time during the previous week, or if I was just not able to get to anything during the previous week, then I'm working sometimes until 9 or 10.
Yeah.
But the time goes by really fast, so I get in here at about 9 o'clock, and then all of a sudden I look at the clock and it's 9 again, and I'm wondering whether or not it's AM or PM. So it just goes by extremely fast.
Well, I have to say, it's an honor to have you on the program tonight, Philip, because you're the first bona fide reporter to be on the Fred Factor. I know in the previous editions we had another opinion columnist from the province came on board, and she did actually the very first edition. She was online, and that was kind of cool. But you're actually a reporter that goes out there, gets stories, and gets into the know of things. It's kind of cool to actually have that access to someone who works in the journal and business.
Yeah, well, no, I enjoyed meeting you. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I respect what you do, and you know, if there's somebody who's a journalist and has the integrity of journalism, then that's great. I think you're as much, or maybe even more, of a good journalist than somebody who's working, say, at the Toronto Star or the Globe and Mail. It's very important to keep the integrity alive, and I strongly believe in that. So yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you, and I don't mind taking the time to do a radio show. It's definitely a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know if I'm a better reporter than the Toronto Star reporters, but certainly the province.
Well, yeah, I don't want to criticize the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail or anything.
Yeah, see, but I can get away with criticizing the province because that's what I'm good at. I've done it many times before, actually.
So you can get away with that.
Yes.
If you're in my position, you wouldn't be able to.
Well, Phil, I want to ask you about this whole situation in Merritt. I've just educated some of our listeners here about what happened in Merritt. A lot of people in the chat room tonight who will be watching this interview may not be aware of what happened in Merritt, or certainly how it was resolved, or even where Merritt is, because they're from all over the country and North America. Although the ones in the chat room right now seem to be pretty well versed in where you are. But Merritt is a small town, and this triple homicide that occurred recently was probably one of the biggest stories to happen in Merritt in a long time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been here for about 2 months, but absolutely. I mean, from what I've heard, and just based on what happened, you wouldn't expect that happened in the last century. So yeah, it's huge. It's a huge story, and it was extremely tragic, and it really hit the heart of the community, and everybody here was devastated. You could tell and talk to people; they're very, very broken up after it happened, and so was I, even though I've only been here for a couple months. But something like that, you can't help but get emotional about. And I just had to leave my emotions to the side while reporting on it. I had to go in there, and I wasn't asking kids, tough questions or anything, or prying into people in the community. It's not my position to say whether or not that should be done or shouldn't be done. The journalist's responsibility is to get the story, and if it involves that, then I think the reporter just has to use their discretion. If the child's willing to talk, then talk to the child, but don't go up to them and pretty much harass them.
Right, yeah, definitely. There are standards that you have to follow. What was it like when you first found out that the story was breaking, that you found out about the homicide, and you found out what was going on? Or was it the moment where you kind of went, oh, crap, this is huge?
Yeah, it was exciting and devastating at the same time. it was an exciting and interesting time, but very, very devastating.
Yeah, so that's one of those things. I mean, you were new to the whole journalism scene. You just graduated from the Langara College where you took journalism, and so I mean, it's one thing to kind of be thrust into something like this when you've been on the job for 2 years, but when it's your first real, like your practicum ended 2 weeks before this all went down. I mean, that is crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess it's good training, but you definitely had to be sharp and know what you're doing. And it was nice to see that I was able to handle it and able to do my job and get it done. And yeah, I really hope something like this never happens again. But it was definitely exciting.
Now, I mean, we talked about this before. Some people were both very complimentary of the Merritt media and the way they handled the story, and some people were very critical of the way it was handled. Or maybe not this issue itself, but the fact that it seemed to the story was oversaturated, and that there were a lot of things were ignored. And as we spoke about, some people in the city that I spoke with said that basically the Merritt newspapers don't really talk about much of anything, and they don't really trust the media to get where we're going. I know we had a conversation about it at some length, and we discussed what some of the reasons for that might have been. I guess getting into all those things and hearing those criticisms, what has your response been in the time since?
Well, actually, that's pretty much the only criticism I've heard, and it's hard to tell right now because I'm so new. I don't know if those are criticisms for the organization and people that were here prior to me arriving and prior to the new editor arriving, or if it's something that we've missed because we're so new to the community and we don't know everything that's going on. What we can rely on is what people tell us and what we hear on the police scanner that we pick up. We respond to those sometimes when there's something going on. But a lot of our stories come from things like city hall meetings, school board meetings, things like that.
Right.
Sometimes very interesting stories, sometimes not so much. I was at an air quality committee meeting a week and a half ago or so, and there's a story that I got from that about the beehive burner here shutting down.
Right.
That was a strong story. So those are where we get the stories from. If we don't pick up on something, it's for example, there's a Colchina 100 story. It was a century-old Colchina hotel that was here in Merritt, and we sort of missed that. It was on our list of stories to cover, but we didn't know how important it was.
Right.
And so we had to cover that a tiny bit later than maybe we should have done. It was about 5 days after the party, the 100th party, and it probably should have been before the party. That's sort of a lead up to the event. So it's hard. We do what we can, but we can't always know about everything.
Well, what strikes me a lot about it too is, I mean, there are two main newspapers in Merritt. There's the Merritt Herald and your newspaper, the Merritt News. And what struck me, kind of the difference in that, is when I brought up this criticism to the Merritt Herald, they basically got defensive with me, whereas you guys were kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if we should work on that. Why do you suppose there's that difference?
I'm guessing they've heard it for years and years. I know the employees there have been there for at least 2 or 3 years, and they probably got to the point where they just maybe gave up. I'm speculating here, but also maybe their organization doesn't allow them to comment to other media organizations or to alternative media organizations such as yourself. So I can only speculate.
Right.
I probably shouldn't even do that.
Well, it's just interesting to know the difference there and the way that was covered. I mean, you wouldn't expect that necessarily in such a small town.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, we're really open here, and we'll just give you, if you ask us good questions, we'll give you good answers if we can. And, I'm not sure why they're like